I would like to call the September 27th, 2023 City Council regular meeting to order. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Carey,
Present.
Mr. Chilson,
Present.
Ms. Hutchings,
Present.
Mr. Nelson,
Present.
Ms. Parker,
Yes, I'm here.
Ms. Wackler,
Present.
Mr. Cassidy.
Here.
You have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda? Thank you, Ms.
I
Hutchings.
will make a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda as presented. Second.
Are there any changes to the agenda or consent agenda? Would the clerk please read the consent agenda?
September 13th, 2023 council meeting minutes. Ordinance 2023-029, ordinance providing for amendments to Soldotna Municipal Code, chapters 2.04 City Council and 17.10 zoning codes to align with the City of Soldotna Public Engagement and Communication Policy, sponsored by the city manager, public hearing on October 11th. Ordinance 2023-030, an ordinance accepting grant funds from the State of Alaska Department of Natural Resources, Division of Forestry and Fire Protection, and increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by $470,000 in the Parks and Recreation's Capital Project Fund for spruce bark beetle mitigation and hazard fuel reductions, sponsored by the city manager, public hearing on October 11th. Action Memorandum 2023-026, request for an excused absence from the October 25, 2023 regular council meeting requested by Mr. Chilson. That is your consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there any public comments on any of the items just read by the clerk? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone here in the audience this evening wishing to speak on any of the agenda items just read off by the clerk? Seeing none, I'll take a look at Zoom and I see no hands raised there. Having no one wishing to speak, the approval of the agenda and consent agenda is back before the council. Are there any objections to approving the agenda and consent agenda? Seeing none, the agenda and consent agenda are approved by unanimous consent. Our next item on the agenda is public comments and presentations. Items other than those appearing on the agenda, 3 minutes per speaker, 20 minutes aggregate. Are there any members from the public who would like to speak on any item not appearing on the agenda? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Please step forward and state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Martin Anderson. I reside at 36696 Kimball Court, Sterling, Alaska. I'm here today to communicate my concern for a lack of transparency and accountability concerning the conduct of the Soldotna Police Department. More importantly, to be a catalyst to provoke change and to assure safety and security for the residents of Soldotna and those who interact with its businesses. I'm sharing a very small sample of documents obtained through the Alaska Public Records Act. It took more than 6 months to obtain these documents from the SPD. In December of 2021, I filed a formal complaint with the Alaska Police Standards Council concerning the conduct of Officer David M. Bauer, specifically falsification of evidence and willful exemption of exculpatory evidence. I included several documents of evidence to the APSC. The APSC forwarded the complaints and all evidence to Lieutenant Dwayne Cant, acting chief, who then forwarded those emails to APCS Sergeant Escott, now Lieutenant Escott, to perform an internal investigation. On January 24th, Sergeant Escott forwarded all the evidence I had provided to the APSC to Officer Bauer and to his wife's personal Gmail account prior to the start of the investigation. Officer Bauer's wife was also the Soldotna police clerk at this time. I read that email. David, I've attached a memorandum which covers in greater detail what we discussed in person on 1/21/22. I've also attached a notification of investigation form. I've included the complaint and supporting documents Martin Anderson provided the Alaska Police Standards Council. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be in touch with you in the coming days as the investigation proceeds. 2 days later, January 26, 2022, Sergeant Tobin Brennan wrote the following to Lieutenant Dwayne Cant concerning my complaint. After talking with you about David's report tonight, I went and read it again. There's a lot of stuff missing from the general report, which I know occurred because David and I talked at length about this case. Conversation I had with the chief, or maybe it was with you, was simply about the technical aspects of my lack of understanding. It had nothing to do with the body of the report, which is lacking. In hindsight, I never should have approved the report and should have been more critical. I will do a better job in the future when reviewing and asking more from those that I supervise. On March 17, 2022, Lieutenant Kent emailed the APSC to inform them that the internal investigation was complete and that nothing was found that would cause Officer Bauer to fall below the APSC standards. June of 2022, I requested and received copies of the SPD standard operating procedures in which they're required to have by their accreditation with the Oregon Accreditation Alliance. As I'm a trained and certified auditor, I viewed the SPD SOPs and found numerous non-compliances. In some instances, the SOPs were simply ignored by the SPD. I met with former city manager Stephanie Queen the same month and presented evidence to her and emailed those documents to her the next day. Ms. Queen never communicated with me after my presentation of evidence of misconduct, non-compliance, and failure to comply with the law by the SPD. In closing, council is elected by the community and entrusted to wisely exercise their endowed fiduciary duty. Each of you took an oath to protect the Constitution of the United States and the state of Alaska, including the rights guaranteed by said documents. I would hope for the safety and security of all, you will not just stand behind legal counsel, minimizing the consequences of misconduct by city employees, but rather fulfill your oath to the people. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak on any item not appearing on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll take a look at Zoom and I see no hands raised there. Moving on to the next agenda item, Assembly and Legislative Report. Are there any representatives from the borough or state in attendance who would like to speak? Seeing none, I'll take a look at Zoom and I see none on Zoom, so we will move on to the next agenda item, which is number 6, public hearings. Ordinance 2023-028, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by $30,000 in the general fund for changes to the authorized personnel staffing table for fiscal year 2024, introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to enact? Ms. Hutchings.
Revenues and appropriations by $30,000 in the general fund changes the authorized personnel staffing table for fiscal year 2024.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Chilson, for the second. Report from the administration.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This ordinance appropriates the funds that were requested through resolution 2023-057, which reclassified the part-time HR assistant position to full-time. And this appropriates for 2020, the remainder of 2020, FY 2024. And then at the mid-year budget time, we will request an appropriation to 2025.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on ordinance 2023-028? Seeing none, I'll take a look at Zoom, and I see no hands raised in Zoom. Having no one wishing to speak, the item is back before the council. Are there any council comments? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote.
Chilson,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Hutchings.
Yes.
Wackler,
Yes.
Cassidy.
Yes.
You have 6 yes votes.
Thank you. Ordinance 2023-028 passes on a 6-0 vote. Moving on to the next agenda item, and that's mayor and council reports. That was come along pretty quick. We have a couple of proclamations to read. First one will be, whereas while considerable progress has been made in the fight against breast cancer, it remains the most frequently diagnosed type of non-skin cancer among women. And whereas breast cancer is the second leading cause of cancer death in women, second only to lung cancer. And whereas simply being a woman is the greatest risk factor for developing breast cancer, with the risk increasing with age. And whereas it is estimated that more than 285,000 new cases of invasive breast cancer will be diagnosed in the U.S. this year, resulting in more than 44,000 deaths among women and men. And whereas in recognition of the important life-saving early detection practices available for breast cancer, especially mammography, which is the current single best screening method for detecting breast cancer. And whereas mammography funding for qualifying uninsured women is available through Central Peninsula General Hospital. Now therefore, I, Paul J. Whitney, Mayor of the City of Soldotna, do hereby proclaim October 2023 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month in Soldotna, and urge all women to become aware that they are at risk and to discuss the screening program with their healthcare providers. I urge all citizens of the City of Soldotna to become involved in the war on breast cancer through advocacy and education. Dated this 27th day of September 2023. The second proclamation is, whereas domestic violence, once a secret kept among families, is now recognized as a serious crime in the state of Alaska. And whereas domestic violence has severe consequences for survivors, their children and families, and has long-lasting impacts on their quality of life. And whereas stopping this cycle of violence requires not only the resolve and courage of survivors, but also support and involvement from all of us. And whereas enhanced education, prevention, and intervention help increase public awareness of severity and extent of domestic violence. And whereas domestic violence is in the home is a problem that affects every socioeconomic level in our society, occurring in wealthy and disadvantaged neighborhoods, and includes the employed and unemployed. Whereas domestic violence is generally learned and passed down from one generation to another, whereas during the month of October, local, state, and national domestic violence agencies will sponsor events to help us focus public attention on the problems of domestic violence. Now, therefore, I, Paul J. Whitney, Mayor of the City of Soldotna, do hereby proclaim October 2023 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Soldotna, and encourage all citizens to dedicate themselves to learning about how to reduce domestic violence, and further encourage everyone to support the domestic violence programs in our community, including the Lee Shore Center and Haven House, dated this 27th day of September 2023. Next thing I have here is don't forget to vote October 3rd. Our local voting precinct is located at the library. And probably some of you are wondering what the item is over there in the corner that's covered up. And our ever-efficient clerk staff, in doing some spring cleaning this year, a couple of months ago, found an item on the shelf that's been there for about 36 years. It's a very important object. It was presented to us during the dedication of the new city hall. And it's something that we should be proud of and display prominently. And at this time, I would ask that Council Member Hutchings and Council Member Carey to please step over there and prepare to unveil it. And while doing that, the reason I chose those two is most of us are too young to have been around here in 1987. So, and Hutchings. You may read that while you do that.
And I'm gonna hold this.
Take it down first.
So go from that corner, go from that corner.
The flag of the United States of America. This is to certify that the accompanying flag was flown over the United States Capitol on March 28, 1987, at the request of the Honorable Frank H. Murkowski, U.S. State Senator. This flag will be presented to Dolly M. Farnsworth, Mayor of Soldotna, for the dedication of the Soldotna's first City Hall. Signed by George M. White, FAIA Architect of the Capitol.
Thank you. As I said, this is a very important and item, and I'm glad we found it, and I'm glad we're able to now display it. And thank you, Council Member Hutchings. And I've said enough for tonight, so we will move on to the next agenda item. Council reports on boards and commissions. No boards or commission meetings were held. Next item is number 9, city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to report that the contract with the awarded contract for the field house project has been signed, both by the contractor and I signed it today. And although the contract's been signed, there's a lot of work ahead, and I thought Mr. Cornelis could provide an update of what happens next.
Sure. First, we're still waiting on conformed set of design documents, so it'll incorporate all the changes that we made during the bid phase through the various addendums. But the next step is to coordinate a pre-construction meeting. There's a lot of documents, not I guess separate from the contract that we just put together, but a list of subcontractors, schedule of values, a lot of construction contract coordination that we'll get with the contractor on, and we have not yet set that date, but soon we'll do that, and we'll begin to understand their means and methods and schedule going forward. So pretty exciting to be reaching that next milestone.
Any questions for Mr. Cornelis?
I wanted to add.
Vice Mayor
I'm
Parker?
Go ahead. Add what you want. As you know that we're checking with your availability for a groundbreaking ceremony, and we'll be back in touch with you on that.
Vice Mayor Parker? Yeah. Anything more in your report, city manager? Okay. We'll move on to the next agenda item, which is number 10, public comments. Members of the public will have 3 minutes to comment. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to make any public comments? Seeing none, we'll take a look at Zoom. And I see no hands raised there. Moving on to the next agenda item is council comments, and we'll start this evening with Ms. Wackler.
No comment today.
Mr. Noble.
I thought she was gonna have more to say. Well, I'm glad to be back again. The school of Soldana High School is doing pretty well. Our sports are all doing decent. Recently, our cross-country running team had our boroughs meet. The girls won and the guys got second. So that was pretty cool. The swimmers, I don't know the exact results, but they just finished with their pentathlon competition, which was massive. And I know they all performed really well. We had many top 3 finishers. Our wrestling season started. Actually, their practice is probably going right now, and they are looking forward to challenging south of Anchorage for the state championship this year. What else? Basketball is already training. Skiing is starting to train. Football is doing really well. So far, they're undefeated in the state. And they even beat Lathrop, which has taken our championship for the past 2 years. Let's see. Our DDF, drama, debate, and forensics team went to Anchorage last weekend. And they had many top 3 finishers. It was basically the size of state. There were a ton of teams there. They did really, really well. Other than that, our school is preparing for prom and other school events. I'm mostly concerned about prom because they put me in charge of it. So, yippee. Other than that, I think that's it. I'm very excited about the field house. I know many of our runners and track athletes are excited about having that. I know for athletes with younger siblings, they're very excited for the potential that gives them. I think our school records are going to be shattered once that is built. It's very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hutchings.
Well, I'm excited about the flag. I think that's great. You know, when my mother passed and they started going through all of these books and records and files. And there isn't a week that goes by that my sister doesn't come across something and she says, I've got something from the city of Soldotna that mom had. Would you like it? And I always say yes, because I love reading all of this. It's a great history of the city. So thank you. And I'm also happy that we have a nice sunshiny day and a few more to come. Thank you.
Mr. Carey,
No comment.
Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. Just to remind those council members who haven't sent back your city manager evaluations, please get those back to me. To those who have sent them to me, thank you so very much. It is exciting news about the field house, and that here in 3 weeks, we'll be breaking ground, and hopefully the contractor decides to move forward, but good times are ahead. And again, congratulations, Noble, on your finish at Regions.
Mr. Nelson.
I'll just second your comment, Mayor Whitney, to make sure we vote. I know we only have one contested local race here at the city level, but it is a good habit to make sure that we're going every day, or every election day, I should say, to the library, maybe every day to the library, but get in that habit and make your voice heard, no matter if it's one race or 10. So that's my comments tonight.
Mr. Chilson.
Nothing to add that hasn't been said, so no comment.
Next item on the agenda is executive session, and there is no reason for one this evening. Item 13 is meeting announcements. October 4th, 2023, Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, 5:30 PM. October 11th, 2023, regular city council meeting at 6 PM. Seeing no other items on the agenda, we are adjourned.
There's a lot of. Is that on their website? Just curious, like, what all the months are. 'Cause I know we haven't had a lot I would like to do that. I mean, once I see them do it, I might have some ideas to throw your way.